Okay, guys, welcome to this webinar about how to acquire new vocabulary and not die trying. This is a topic that I personally love because I believe that the vocabulary is something absolutely necessary when you are trying to learn a second language, and it's always an obstacle for a lot of people. Before we start with the topic, I want to introduce myself. I'm Daniel Torres. I'm the academic coordinator of Pereira's branch of Jamestown English Center. Well, we're going to be sharing this topic for the next 50 minutes or probably 1 hour. If you have any questions, please write your questions in the chat box, and we're going to be answering to some of them at the end of the class. Well, let's begin with this topic that I consider very, very important. Before we continue, again, can you write in the chat if you can see the presentation properly and you can hear me properly? I'm gonna be checking your answer, so please tell me if everything's okay and we can start with the class. Okay, Luisa, thank you. Anyone else? Can you confirm? Okay, that's great. So guys, today's topic is about vocabulary. So before we start talking about vocabulary, let's talk about something that it's the basis of everything. Let's talk about memory. Now, you might know this little fish. I think it's very famous. She's very famous. Do you know her? Do you know her name? Can you tell me in the chat? Do you know her name? The name of this character? Okay. Yes, John, you're right. Nicole as well. This is Dory. Now, Dory is one of these famous Disney characters because of something. There is a personal aspect of Dory that it's very interesting. How can you describe Dory in one word? Can you think of an adjective to describe Dory? Probably you know it, but you don't know the word. So if you know, please leave me in the chat. If you can describe Dory with one single word. Dun, 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 dun. Or probably with 2 or 3 words. Okay, great, Maria Jose, you're totally right. A word to describe Dory is the word forgetful. That's right, because she's always forgetting things, and that's what is interesting about this character. Now, this led us to something very interesting, and is the next thing. Is it true that fish have a memory of only 3 seconds? What do you think? Do you think that this is something true or this is false? Again, let me know in the chat box. I want to hear, I want to read your answers. Is it true that a fish have a memory of 3 seconds? True or false? Take one side. I want to see your answers in the chat box. Okay, John, you said that it's false. Good. Any other answer? Okay, Maggie. I'm gonna call you Mai. Okay, it's false. Great. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, thank you, Maria Jose, to say that it's false. So let's see the answer. Well, the truth is that this is false. There is a very famous TV show called Mythbusters, and they tested this myth about the fish with the 3 seconds memory. If you want, you can check the link. Don't worry, at the end, I'm gonna give you a link to review this presentation, and you can see a little bit of this topic. So remember, fish have a longer memory, okay? Not just 3 seconds. Okay, now, the thing is that when it comes to English and when it comes to languages, we all have words or phrases that we are always going to struggle to remember in English. And this is something that happens a lot because, again, we are learning a second language. So, of course, we're going to find some difficult things to remember. I want to share with you something that, in my personal case, was very difficult to remember in the moment where I was learning English, and it's this. As you know, we have some very similar words in the spelling, even though they are very different in the pronunciation, but I remember that I struggled a lot to memorize and to remember these words. So now, for example, we could say something like this, and let's practice at home, okay? Please practice just where you are, and let's see if you know the pronunciation of these words. So English is weird. It can be understood through tough, thorough, tough, though. Now, if you say it together, it's going to be a tongue twister because it's very difficult to say. So English is weird. It can be understood through tough, thorough, tough, though. And that's the way how you say it. So now I can say it, but again, it's a process. At the beginning, it was very difficult to remember these words. So yes, I know that you always struggle with something, but don't worry, we're going to talk about that later. So this led us to this question. So why do we forget things? Please write in the chat, why do you think that people forget things? And let me know, and we're going to see your answers. Remember, I mean, just your ideas, okay? What do you believe? Why do people forget things? So please let me know in the chat, what do you think about this question? Okay, we're waiting for your answers. So remember, just let us know, what do you think about this question? Don't worry, take your time. Okay, Ana Maria says something very important, lack of practice. You're right. Okay, Nicole, the same, because you don't practice. Maria Jose, our brains believe that something is not useful. Okay, that's a very good point. Okay, Juan Alejandro, because we don't practice all the time. Yes, you're totally right with your point. So all of you have, all of you are right, but let's see a little bit of an academic reason, or probably a scientific reason. Why do we forget things? So the thing is that we have something that it's called the forgetting curve. This is an academic theory when it comes to memory and yes, about learning new things. As you can see in this chart, don't worry, this is not IELTS writing. I know that it's a very difficult part. As you can see, we are going to find five different colors here. Four different colors, I'm sorry. We have the blue line that basically says that when you learn something in class, of course, you're going to forget the content along or in a specific time. So for example, after 10 minutes, you're gonna forget almost 40% of what you've learned. In 24 hours, you're gonna forget almost 20%, and probably over 1 month, you're going to totally forget about the topic. But what happens? This is about reviewing. If you review the same topic, let's say 1 week later, you are going to increase your knowledge about the topic. Of course, you're going to forget the things, but as you can see, the process of forgetting something is going to become slower. And also, you're not going to forget 100% of the topic, but you're only going to forget, well, less amount of the content. That increases when you move to the second review or to the third review. Something we can learn about this forgetting curve is that you are not going to learn the things just once. In fact, you are going to have to learn something almost 3 or even 4 times before that becomes a long-term memory. So that is something that we have to deal with, okay? Our brains are absolutely amazing, but they have some, probably not limitations, but they have some things that we have to learn about it. And something that we have to remember is that the memory is not a process that happens just once, and learning is not something that happens just once. We have to do it over and over again. So this is something very interesting, because a lot of students suffer because of this. Because they always say, teacher, but what do I do? I mean, I study a lot, but I always forget with the word. I always forget the words. Don't worry, it's a natural process. So the best thing that we need to do is that we have to remember a rule number 1 about the whole thing of memory. And is that forgetting things is absolutely normal, and you shouldn't feel bad about it, okay? Just remember that. So let's move on with some other topics. So we know that we are going to forget things. You're probably going to say that I'm a fan of this movie, but I mean, I'm not. It's just that it was a really cool picture to show. So what can you do in order to, well, to deal with the process of learning? Well, it's pretty simple. Let me move to the next slide. Now, guys, I want to see if you're attentive to the webinar. Can you tell me what's the key word in the title of this webinar? What do you think is like the most important word in the title of this webinar? What do you think? Let me know in the chat box, please. A very important word that you might not know how to pronounce, but don't worry, that's not the case. Okay. So, you're taking too long. I think that you can't remember the title of the webinar. Okay. Oh. Well, yeah. How not to die. Yes, you're right. I mean, that's the purpose of this webinar. Vocabulary is the main idea of the webinar, right? But what is the key word in the name? Okay, so remember, the name of this webinar Oh, forget. No. The name of this webinar is how to acquire new vocabulary and multi-trying. That's the name. Great, Maria. So the whole lesson or the whole thing about this webinar is about that word, about acquisition. That's the word. But then why acquiring a language? Why do you use that fancy word, acquiring? Why don't you say learning or memorizing? Why acquiring? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. The thing is that there is a theory by a very well-known linguistic that's called Stephen Krashen. I really recommend you, if some of you is interested in starting with a learning career or an English teaching career, I'm sorry, look for the theory of this man, because it's very incredible, and it's gonna open your mind to how this whole process is. And is that he has a theory called second language acquisition. So don't worry, I mean, this is not an academic webinar, but we're going to talk a little bit about this acquisition thing. And let's going to see what is the difference between learning and acquisition, so we can continue with the rest of the webinar. So the first thing to say is that when you learn something, you're actually knowing something about the language. You know about the structure of the language, you know about the rules of the language, but the acquisition is not based on knowing about the language, it's about picking up the language. So it's when you unconsciously learn something. That's the second point. If you are, for example, in a bus and you are listening to people talking, you're going to hear probably a new expression. And you say, hey, I don't know what that means, but you are going to remember that, and you're going to understand, again, unconsciously, the meaning of that. That's acquisition. Again, learning is a conscious process. You all learn English because you attended to classes at Jamestown. Of course, you were conscious of what you were doing because you attended to class, you went probably eight hours a week or something. Of course, you learn about language. Again, in acquisition, this is a subconscious process. So it's something that you do without knowing that you're doing it. Learning depends on aptitude. Again, you are going to need information about how to study, okay? Studying techniques. So of course you have to know about it. But if you want to learn the language, you are simply going to do it because it depends on your attitude. If you really want to learn, of course you are going to learn if you focus on acquisition, okay? Now let's continue. In learning, we focus on grammatical rules. In acquisition, we focus on grammatical fields. Sometimes you feel that something is not right when you hear it, but you can't explain why. So that is a grammatical field. You feel that it's not right. Therefore, you understand the language without studying. Learning is something artificial or technical. Yeah, as you might know, sometimes the course books are not like 100% natural. They try to be natural, but not 100% natural. So that's what happens here. And of course, in acquisition, we're talking about a natural process. It's also personal because you are learning the language. Finally, learning produces knowledge, and acquisition produces an ability to communicate something in a specific situation. So remember this, learning is not the same as acquisition. So what's the best option when you want to increase your vocabulary? What can you do? Well, there is a formula to success that it's very, very simple. You have to get the form of the language plus the function plus the context. Okay, but how do you do that? What does it mean? Well, it's pretty simple. First, you have to focus on the word or the phrase. Okay, for example, acquisition. Then you have to know in which situations, in which context are you going to use it. And then you have to get an example of the use of that word in a real context. When you combine these three elements, you are going to get effective learning. So this is something that you always need to know. Learning is not effective if you don't contextualize it in the real world. But how do you do it? Okay. Well, there are two approaches here. Of course, you're going to get the language by reading or listening. It's I mean, those are the main sources of the learning process. Now, there are two approaches, and I want you to tell me what you think is the difference. Intensive learnings, check out the icon, yeah, very cool icon, and in extensive learning. What do you think is the difference? Let me know in the chat box, what do you think about this? Intensive versus extensive. So again, oh, I'm sorry. I think that you can't see the icon, so I'm gonna move this here. So you can see the two different icons, and you can tell me what you think about the difference of this. Okay, don't worry, take your time. Think about it, don't worry. And let me know what you think about this. Okay, Maria Jose, well, you have a good point. Intensive, learn word to word, good. Extensive, learn a lot of language. Yes, you're very close, very, very close. Any other idea? Don't worry, remember you can express yourselves. Feel free to do it. Check out the icons. The icons are the key for understanding this topic. Okay, let's give some more seconds. So if any one of you have a different opinion, so we can all check it. All right. Okay, guys. Well, let's talk a little bit about the difference of intensive and extensive reading or listening. When we talk about intensive, as you can see, we have a magnifier here in the icon, is when you read a text or you listen to something, but you read the text a lot of times and you get to memorize the text or the audio that you are, well, listening or reading. That is an approach to learning. when you just take one piece of language and you go through the piece of language over and over again. That's something that helps a lot when you're trying to get new vocabulary. And we also have extensive learning, extensive reading, or extensive listening. That's basically reading or listening a lot without doing it again. In fact, when it comes to listening, you might all remember the listening test of IELTS. Oh, the best part of the test. It was very difficult at the beginning because you were not used in that moment to listen to English language. You were used to hear to a lot of people talking in Spanish. So you do need some time for your brain to switch to English mode. So that is the basis of these type of activities, to focus on different aspects of language. So you can practice one of these two in order to get vocabulary. It all depends on you, okay, and what you think is works best for you. Okay, let's continue. Remember something. This is a very well-known quote, and it's tell me and I forget, show me and I remember, involve me and I understand. Remember, you have to take the word, tell me. You have to see the context, show me. But you also have to contextualize, involve me and I understand. That's key when it comes to learning and when it comes to increasing your vocabulary. All right? Okay, so this is rule number 2. Learn or acquire new vocabulary in context and try to use it in production frequently. So try to create sentences. Try to write down something. It doesn't matter, but try to use the new language. Okay? Good. Now let's continue. I think you don't see this, but I'm gonna move this here. Okay. Another thing we have to do when we want to, well, to overcome this lack of vocabulary thing is to understand the blank or blurry areas of vocabulary. What happens? A blank or a blurry area is an unclear, too basic, or non-existent vocabulary about something. Here, for example, you have a lot of elements that you can find at home. But you're going to see that some of these words, even though they look very simple, we might not know them. So guys, we have 30 words, oh, I'm sorry, 33 elements here. Please write down in the chat some words that you can identify, some content. I'm sorry, some concepts or some words that you can identify from all these elements. Remember that you have the numbers, so you can write the number, for example, I don't know, I don't want to spoil anything, but for example, number 1, so 1, table, there's a dining room table. So please go ahead, write in the chat, how many of these words do you know? I'm gonna move these here. I think I'm gonna resize the window a little bit so you can see everything. Yeah. So remember, just write the number and the word that you know. Okay. Good. So, I mean, you don't have to write every number. You can say just 1 or 2. I don't know, just the ones that you can identify. Okay, so we have 124. Where's 24? Sorry, I can't see it. 24, 24, 24. A knife. Ah, okay. Are you sure it's 24, Ana Maria? I think you made a mistake. Oh, yes, fork. Yes, you're right, because you say a knife. Great. Two, oh, yes, okay, yeah. Okay, of course, good. Yeah, it's a chair. Good, Maria. Anyone else? Do you know any other word? Okay. Yes, you're right. So what's the okay, 31 glass? Yes. Okay. So what's something important about this? And is that there is a lot of vocabulary that we ignore. And our task as learners is to identify those blank or blurry areas and to start working on them. I'm going to give you some resources because this picture is part of a very, very good English course. But don't worry, I'll talk about that later. So yes, good. So here are the answers. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, here. We're not going to focus on the answers. Again, you're going to have the chance to see the presentation again if you're interested. So don't worry about it. You can check that later. Okay, good. So now, what do you think? How many words are necessary to have an operative English level? What do you think? Try to guess a number. Please let me know. Again, in the chat. I want to see your messages. How many words do you need to know to say that you can speak English? Remember, it doesn't have to be an exact number. Okay, Ana Maria, you say 1,000. Good. Any other idea? Okay, not sure. Yeah, okay. Don't worry, we're going to see that later. Okay, any other idea? How many words do you need? Come on, just say whatever you think. Well, not say, type whatever you think. A different number, 1,000. Probably more, probably less. It all depends on what you think. Okay, guys, does anyone have a different opinion? Okay, Maria. Okay, probably with very keywords, you could use 200. Yes, great. Okay. Any other idea about how many? Okay, 800. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to show you something that's going to be very interesting. The thing is that all languages are high frequency. They have some words that are very frequent. If you focus on the high frequency language, the high frequency words, you're going to see that with 1,000 words, you are going to have 85% coverage of most everyday conversations or everyday situations. Now, if you increase the number of words, to 3,000, you're going to have almost 98% coverage of all the vocabulary that you need. Again, we're talking about vocabulary because sometimes, even if you know the vocabulary, the understanding of the pronunciation, the accent, and the speed might be a problem, but not the vocabulary, because you're going to know the vocabulary. So if you want to know more about this, there is a YouTube video where you can see an academic explaining something about this more in detail. Okay, so you can check that later. Okay, now let me see. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yes. Again, I don't know if you like this new Netflix series called Dark. I'm personally crazy about it. I mean, I love it. So remember something. What you know is a water drop. What you ignore is the ocean. Okay, keep that. That's a really cool quote. Okay, so now let's continue. So now let's do a quick activity. You can do it at home. We're going to check your vocabulary. Now I'm going to share with you a link to a website where you're going to do an activity to get an estimation. Again, remember, this is not perfect, of how many words you know in English. All right. So I'm going to stop the screen sharing for a moment and I'm going to share with you the link. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, so I'm going to copy the link in the chat box. You can access the website if you are connected from a mobile phone. Don't worry. Can you tell me if you can see the message, the link to the website? I'm sorry, I haven't sent it. Yes, can you see the link, guys? Okay, so please go ahead, click the link and do the activity. I'm going to show you how, or what is the structure of the activity. Again, can you confirm if you can see my screen? Yes, I'm in a website right now. Okay, great. So the test is very, very simple. You have a list of words and you have to click, you have to tick the check boxes of the words you know, not the words that you heard once and you think you know the answer. No, just the words that you are sure that you know. So this is a two steps activity. So please go ahead and tick all the boxes with the words you know, then click and continue. You're gonna have the second part. It's exactly the same process. You're gonna have different words. And then they're gonna ask you some anonymous information. Don't worry about it. And you're gonna have an estimation of your vocabulary range, okay? So go ahead, guys, please do the activity and let me know your results. Again, I'm gonna be checking the chat and we'll share the answers together. Remember, don't stay more than, I don't know, 1 second with one word. If you know the word, it's okay. If you don't know the word, ignore it. Okay, and continue with the other words. Very quick. You have to do this in 4 minutes. So you have 2 minutes. Go ahead, do it. Okay. Remember, when you get your results, please share the results here in the chat box to know more about your vocabulary. If you are watching this webinar at home, don't worry, you can also do it and you can also participate from distance. Okay, guys, remember, not more than 1 second with every word. If you know the word, okay. If you don't know the word, Don't worry, just skip the word and continue with the other ones. It says that it works for everyone, even, I mean, from small children to college professors. So it's something very good. There are more options out there. So if you can check vocabulary tests, you're going to find different options, okay? So guys, go ahead. You have 1 more minute. Okay, continue. I'm gonna give you more time, but not too much time. Okay. Go ahead. Remember, when you get your results, send the results to the chat box. Okay, cool. Have you finished? No? Hurry up. You don't have much time. Okay, good. Ana Maria, you're the first person who finished it. Great. Cool. So remember, guys, every result close to the figure 1000 is a good result, because you have the necessary vocabulary to understand and to be able to produce language. Okay, so don't worry. Good. You can send the results if you want. Great. Okay, good, great. We can see a big number here. Well, 2,180, great. Okay, yes. Don't be surprised, is your result, is your performance. You have studied a lot, great. Okay, guys, we have to move on. If you haven't, wow, great, 9,000. Oh my God, you're a really good, speaker. Great. So guys, if you haven't finished, you can save the link. Don't worry, you're not gonna lose your results, but we have to continue, okay? Good. So great, congratulations to you. So now let's continue. We're almost done with the webinar about vocabulary, acquiring new vocabulary. So now let's continue. Now, the rule number 3, and I want you to remember this, is that you already know the language. You just have to identify your blank or blurry areas and focus on them. Check the vocabulary, study the vocabulary, and practice, right? But you already know the language. So now let's talk about some useful resources to learn. Again, remember, learn the language. There are thousands of them, but I can recommend some of them because I have personally tried them and I know that they are very cool. But again, they worked for me. They might not work for everybody. If you want to learn phrasal verbs, there is an application on the Android store, 200 English phrasal verbs. Very cool. It's gonna show you the words in context with a lot of repetition. Very cool. Learn English vocabulary free, again, is a very cool activity. It's a very cool app that has the same elements: vocabulary in context plus activities. Urban Dictionary, very good, especially for slang. Lingy, an excellent translator, especially because it's going to provide you examples of the use of words in real, from real websites. Is very cool. Cambridge Dictionary, of course, they have a lot of examples. And finally, my top three words for sources, for vocabulary, word by word, is a course book where you're going to find a lot of pictures, as the one that we did with the dining room, with a bunch of new vocabulary to learn. Anki Droid, well, it's Anki, but we have the version for Android. Very cool. It's for flashcards and Quizlet. Again, if some of you are interested in teaching, Quizlet is absolutely great. All right, and what about useful ways to acquire the language? Remember that acquisition different to learning. Watch cartoons. Of course, I love cartoons. Personally, I love them. And cartoons are very good when it comes to getting new vocabulary. Tooncast, if you have Tooncast, it's a great tool. But you might say, teacher, but why Tooncast if the cartoons are in Spanish? Well, I'm going to give you a hint. It's not in the presentation, but this, for example, is my remote controller to my TV. And all the companies in Colombia have these four color buttons. In Claro, I think in Claro is the red button. If you click this button, you can turn or you can configure the language of the TV channels you have. So for example, if you're watching a movie, you can press one of these buttons and you're going to get the audio in English. And you can set the subtitles with the yellow one as well. It works with almost all the companies. Tigo, this personally, I'm using Tigo. It has that option. ETV, if you have ETV in some parts in Colombia, it works as well. UNE, it works as well if you're in Bogota or a place like that. Great. Listen to music, my personal advice, intensively, not extensively. Act out movie clips. This is very cool. Just watch a clip of a movie and interpret the actor or the actress by imitating the tone, the rhythm, and the speed of the speaking. Specialized books or audiobooks. I love audiobooks. I constantly fall asleep when I'm reading, so I prefer audiobooks because of that. And finally, find your own strategy. Okay, you are autonomous learner. You are an autonomous learner if you have more than 1,000 words. So rule number 4, and we're almost finished. Practice makes perfect. So use apps, read a lot, and have fun getting to the major leagues of English speaking. All right. So guys, thanks a lot for your participation. Don't leave yet, okay? No, stay where you are. Here you can see the Nearpod code if you want to review this presentation. So please take note of it. So you don't miss information. Oh, the Nearpod presentation. Remember the application we used for clubs? Well, I'm sorry, if you don't know it, I'm going to show you the website so you can go and check it. So Nearpod, oops, I'm sorry, this is a little slow. Nearpod.com, and you are going to I mean, in this case, it's showing my teacher version, but you can enter, I mean, it's going to ask you a code, as you can see here to the left. So you write the code and you're gonna have access to the presentation. All right, nearpod.com. And the code, again, NSFYL. Guys, don't leave yet because we have a survey and we would like to know your opinion about the webinar. Thank you so much for attending to this webinar. I'm gonna leave you with the questions. Don't worry, 1 or 2 minutes. And well, that's it for today. Oh, before we leave, do you have any question that you might want to answer, that you might want to share with us? Let me know in the chat, please. Before we leave and before we finish. Anyone? Oh, yes, that's a great question, Ana Maria. Well, it all depends on your personal likes, okay? However, I recently listened to Rich Father, Poor Father by Robert Kiyosaki. Great book. I really recommend that book. It's about finances and some, I mean, economical things about, but it's also about philosophy. It's about philanthropy. It's great. I mean, it's gonna change your mind if you read if you read the book or if you hear to the audiobook. It's really cool. Yeah, Rich Father, Poor Father. Okay. Does anyone else have another question you might want to share with us? No more questions? Okay, guys. Oh, the application, which application? We talked about some applications. Let me go back. So here we have a list of them. The one that I say that I personally love. Well, I love using the 3 last resources word by word. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can't read German, but yes. Thank you, Mai. Thanks a lot. So I like word by word, Anki, really cool, and Quizlet. I love Quizlet because it helps me as a student and also as a teacher. It's great. Okay, guys, thanks a lot for your participation. Remember, please don't leave. I'm gonna share with you a quick survey. Well, best wishes, and I wish you a really good afternoon to everyone. Bye-bye.